A judge has ordered Uber to create an email address, but for what reason?
Xbox, Twitter, Uber,
Postmates,
Netflix, MoviePass,
Google,
Facebook, eBay,
DoorDash,
Apple, Amazon, Airbnb,
The Apptrepreneur. Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Apptrepreneur. If this is your first time here, welcome. I'm so glad that you were able to come. But hey, if you happen to like what you see here, please do me a favor. Ring that bell button and subscribe. It helps us out. You will get notifications of our near daily content, and we upload quite a few times a day, although we did miss an update yesterday, so we're not perfect. And we talk about the gig economy, Uber, Lyft, e-commerce, eBay, Amazon, sometimes Netflix and Disney Plus, whatever. So hey, that sounds interesting to you? You know what to do. Now today we are going to talk about Uber. Now I have talked about Uber quite a bit, and today we are talking about a very strange order that a judge made from Uber. He requires them to make an email address. Now, what is this email address for? Well, I'll give you a little hint. It has a lot to do with the arbitration clause that's hidden deep within the driver-user agreement. Now, before we get into all of that, I'd like to talk to you a little about my sponsor, gigworker.com. They are a wonderful company. They provide a lot of information and services to drivers of Uber, Lyft, all those companies, and they need your help. They have got a survey down below. The link is right there, and they need you to take 5 minutes of your time, maybe 6 at most, to do this survey, and they will give you $5 for the privilege of doing it. This survey will then be sold to news media outlets like Vox about what it feels like to be a driver for Uber in the current year, and I think considering Uber totally shuns most of our information, it's nice to know that someone is listening. So there, link is below. 5 minutes, $5. Everyone will get paid on Saturday. I highly recommend it. So this topic was inspired, well, not inspired, I guess I got the information from it, from this Jalopnik article from Aaron Gordon, whose work I love, by the way. Why a judge made Uber create an email address. Because this is really odd. Like, this headline, I was like wondering, what is this about? Because I was under the impression that Uber did have an email address. In fact, was under the impression they had several email addresses. So what was this? Let's take a look. So on November 25th, Uber sent an updated technology services agreement to its drivers through the driver app. Like all terms of service we encounter on the internet, the 27-page single-space agreement flashed across their phones when they opened the app hoping to make some money that day. Drivers couldn't use the app and therefore to drive for Uber unless they agreed. The app even allows drivers to agree without opening the document at all. By the way, never do this. Never do this. Always have a semblance of an idea of what you are agreeing to before you agree to it. Quote, nobody reads 30 pages of, stuff the average human can't understand in the tiniest font in the world, one driver from the Philadelphia market told Jalopnik. When you're trying to go to work, you press I agree and they activate your app. To be fair, some drivers Jalopnik spoke to did read the entire agreement, but the ones who do often have an even more cynical impression of the relationship with their algorithmic boss. If a driver reads the agreement thoroughly and carefully, it's painfully clear Uber and Lyft don't have your back or support drivers, said another driver who requested anonymity out of fear of retaliation from the ride-hail companies. I think most drivers would be stunned if they realize how truly on their own they are out there on the streets in their own cars with total strangers in the back seat. Among the many provisions that make this clear is the arbitration provision, which requires drivers to settle disputes with the company in private closed-door proceedings decided by an arbiter paid by Uber rather than in court. We've talked about this arbitration process many, many times. It's not a fair process, and you should opt out of it if you can, which actually, I'm getting ahead of myself there. It also prevents them from joining class action lawsuits such as over their employment status as independent contractors. Not only does the mere presence of an arbitration provision exemplify the control Uber wishes to exert over its so-called driver partners, but does so the history of that provision, how it came to be, and what options drivers have to fight. Buried at the bottom of the agreement, and this is important for all you new drivers out there, by the way, there is a provision that allows drivers to opt out of the arbitration clause, giving them the right to sue Uber in court like normal. Because, Uber's had so many lawsuits, that's totally normal. Quote, it's the companies that are trying to go to the arbitration because it's to their advantage, said Shannon Liz Riordan, who I dislike, by the way, a lawyer who fought Uber for the right to opt out of arbitration. Systematically, it's a system that helps corporate defendants. And yeah, we've talked about it too. So, arbitration provisions only work if people agree to them, which is why Uber has made it very easy to agree and very difficult to opt out. In fact, Uber tried to prevent drivers from being able to opt out at all. But due to Liz Riordan's efforts, all drivers have to do now is send an email to optout@uber.com from the email address associated with their Uber account and include a statement that makes it very clear you are opting out of the arbitration provision, your name, your phone number associated with your Uber account, and the city you live in. It wouldn't hurt to clearly state the email address associated with your Uber account as well, even if the opt-out provision doesn't specifically state that you must. Additionally, drivers can use an online tool created by Rideshare Drivers United that walks them through the process. Drivers must do this within 30 days of agreeing to the provision, which gives drivers until December 25th, 2019, if they agreed the day the new agreement was distributed. So now it goes on to like a lot of about arbitration, what lawyers think about this. I personally think it's a extremely scummy thing to do. Because, yeah, here's the thing. How should I put this? You want to have defense when you're suing Uber. When you have a complaint against your boss, like, you wouldn't go to complain to your boss about something that you found to be problematic going on in your company without first approaching HR. You want an HR to be there. Now, granted, sometimes HR has the company's back more than yours, but HR is, in theory, supposed to be there where it's like, okay, yes, they have the company's back, but they also have the employees' backs. And they have the employees' back, especially because the employee, if they bring an issue to HR and HR doesn't do anything about it, the company becomes liable. So that's what HR is there for, to prevent things like that from happening and to hopefully solve problems before they get to the point of someone getting sued. Uber doesn't have an HR department, though, at least not one that works with the drivers, and they only have independent contractors. And yet, that means that they are more sustainable to being sued than before because they don't have that HR department that helps them out. So that's why they had the arbitration agreement. Like, they wanted to force drivers to basically, go to them to solve a problem, which is like, most of us have read the Susan Fowler blog post, The Very Strange Year of Uber. She's writing a book about that, by the way, about her experiences with Uber. And we know that Uber actually not only encourages bad behavior, and I think to a certain extent they still do, but their HR do not have your back. So you do not, and arbitration is usually paid for by a court. In this case, it's paid for by Uber. So those people who are running arbitration have it in their best interest to protect the people who are paying them, not the people who are just simply complaining. I know you have a real reason to complain, but anyway. So what is this about the email address? Well, here's the thing. It used to be much harder to opt out of the arbitration clause. On July 15, 2013, Uber sent a software license and online service agreement to all of its drivers through the Uber app. The agreement stipulated, among other terms, that Uber does not provide transportation services and is not a transportation carrier. Now, I forgot to report on this. I think I either had too many things to talk about or it just slipped my mind. But yes, Uber sent out one of their user agreements, and in it, they said that by signing this new agreement, you are saying we are not a transportation service. They are making you unwilling pawns in their political fight to get AB5 overturned. Now, some of you will probably say, I don't care. I want AB5 to be dead. I don't like it. Heck, I shared my video about how AB5 was personally affecting me, and, people said, oh, that's karma and all that. No, I knew about all of this. I'm being fair and showing that, yes, despite the fact that this is going to hurt me a little bit, I would still rather have it and have the drivers be paid better and treated like human beings than, yeah, that's the thing. I will give up a few minimal sacrifices on my end financially if it means everybody has a better quality of life dealing with these scumbags. But, yeah, and these are scumbags because, here's the thing, AB5 is trying to state that, Uber is a transportation business. So what does Uber do? They get their thousands of drivers to unwittingly agree that, hey, yeah, they're not a transportation service. I mean, the government says you are, But our drivers, the people who are driving for us, picking people up, delivering food, and doing everything, and actually nothing but transportation, they're saying we're not a transportation company, so, whatever. But here's the thing. Should an Uber driver have to read the entire 15-page agreement over which they could not negotiate and needed to agree to in order to keep earning money, they would have learned that they were waiving their rights to sue Uber in court and agreeing to private mediation, otherwise known as arbitration, to be decided by an arbiter rather than an appointment judge. Because here's the thing. Uber tried this at one point, and there was a big deal. I remember me and Uberman and Rideshare Professor, we were all saying this. Hey, when you go to the new agreement, send an email to this email address that we were provided and get out of it. Opt out of it. Now they're trying to get you to opt back into arbitration. Sneaky SOBs. Critically, it also prevented them from suing Uber as a group if the circumstances apply to all drivers, an important mechanism for customers of any business to challenge corporate wrongdoing in court. Uber maintained then and still maintains today that Uber drivers are their customers. No, we certainly don't work for them, even though they tell us what to do. So, actually, they might have a point. I mean, they screw us and we continue to do it anyway out of the goodness of our hearts. Maybe they have a point. Class actions are the typical private enforcement mechanism to force a company to stop violating the law, Duvall said. Because enough drivers have not opted out of these arbitration agreements to date, Uber has avoided a class action judgment which would otherwise force it to change how it does business. To be fair, the 2013 arbitration provision did include an opt-out mechanism. All drivers had to do was merely hand-deliver a letter to Uber's general counsel, whose identity the agreement did not disclose, within 30 days. If the driver could not hand-deliver a letter, he or she had to send their opt-out in hard copy via overnight mail and only via overnight mail. Yeah, so see, here's what it looked like, by the way. Must be postmarked within 30 days. You should not opt out of this arbitration. Uber shall be bound in terms of arbitration. Whatever. Yeah, here is this. Signed, delivered by nationally recognized overnight delivery service. So you're basically spending $20 to get FedEx to hand deliver it, whatever. The irony of this was not lost on Liz Reardon, who filed a class action lawsuit against Uber a month later that, among other things, challenged the validity of the arbitration provision. One of the grounds of which she challenged it was how onerous it was to opt out of Uber, a company slavishly devoted to the Silicon Valley ethos of technological disruption, refused to acknowledge the existence of the internet in its arbitration opt-out process. Even more ironically, although the lawsuit Liz Reardon filed was fundamentally about the driver's employment status as independent contractors, it was specifically about the lack of tipping functionality within the Uber app. Boy, this brings back so much memories. At the time, and for years afterwards, Uber co-founder Travis Kalanick, whatever. Let's see here. Yet when it came to drivers opting out of the arbitration clause, suddenly friction was not a concern. It was in fact preferred. So, here's the thing. Here's what it is. The first 6 months of the lawsuit, O'Connor vs. Uber. 3 months into the case, the Judge Edward Chen told the respective parties to negotiate a new arbitration clause to address various problems with the 2013 one. The new one had to make clear much earlier in the document that Uber was the subject of ongoing litigation, and the arbitration clause would make drivers unable to join that suit. It would also have to make it easier for drivers to opt out, perhaps using this newfangled invention called the internet. That didn't go well. 4 months later, the two sides said negotiations were unfruitful and asked Judge Chen to settle the matter himself. In that ruling, Chen noticed Uber's suggestion made a pretty darn significant change. Drivers would no longer be able to opt out at all. This was from the ruling. However, the licensing agreement does not comply with the court's order in that it does not give any means of opting out. Contrary to the prior licensing agreement that gave 30 days to opt out of the arbitration provision by hand delivery or overnight mail, the new licensing agreement allows no opt-out. The new licensing agreement provides, if you choose not to accept this agreement, including the arbitration provisions, you will no longer have access to Uber services and software. I mean, look, people are frying people who support AB5. Do you not realize how many jobs are going to be lost? You know what? Bite me. Seriously. Look at this. This is Uber saying, hey, you're going to do everything we tell you to do, and you will like it. And if you don't like it, you simply won't make any money. Oh, by the way, not employees. This was particularly irksome because Uber was now facing a potentially ruinous class action lawsuit, the very same case over which Judge Chen was presiding. Uber was trying to prevent any new drivers from joining that case by giving them an ultimatum. Either agree to join this or any other lawsuit or don't work for us. On the other side, Chen also had problems with the plaintiff's wording, which he thought made it sound like the lawsuit would likely prevail and included a URL for information on the suit the court didn't control. He directed the parties to craft a new agreement that used Uber's wording but kept the opt-out provision and made it less odious to use. A month later, Uber returned to court with an updated proposal. This one did make a concession. It allowed for drivers to opt out via regular U.S. mail, which at least no longer requires the notice to be shipped overnight. Liz Riordan thought this wasn't good enough. After all, Uber is a technology company, according to the very same agreement. Why not use, technology like email? My nose is itching really bad. Uber replied by saying, technology? What technology? This is going on a lot longer than I thought it would, but honestly, this is great. None of the electronic opt-out mechanisms proposed by plaintiffs' counsel currently exist, and all would require Uber to reprogram its systems and create new functionality. This burden is simply on wording. It's worth noting that one of the specific mechanisms Liz Riordan proposed was an email address. So here's the thing. Chen was having none of it, and he said, however, little technology is required simply to provide an email address to which drivers can send an opt-out notice. Moreover, given that the notices and revised licensing agreements are sent electronically, it is only fair that drivers be afforded an opportunity to opt out electronically. For her part, Dubal and law professor at UC Hastings thinks Chen got this wrong. She told Jalopnik this line of argument from Uber was patently absurd. Uber represents itself to be a technology company that is on the leading edge of advanced AI. They can't create an opt-out box in their electronic contract? That's ridiculous. In either event, this is how it came to be that Uber created an email address for drivers to opt out of arbitration. A judge had to make them. You know what? I'm going to leave it here on this. So, if anyone want to pause and read this shows just how scummy this company really is. Anyway, we're going to actually kind of, I don't feel like giving them free advertising. So, yeah. And people wonder why I support AB5. Seriously. This is it's because they do stuff like this. They really think they are above the law and that they can get away with whatever the heck they want. Well, no, they can't. They absolutely cannot. And I'm glad that situations like this come up so that they can be forced to basically so that they can be shown the fools that they are. But you know what? This is complicated. Well, no, it's not. It's Uber being jerks. So since it's not complicated, we will end it here now that I've went through a lot of this. Now, I did not read a lot of this article, and it's definitely worth reading in full. When you read the full article, boy, do you realize the absurdity of this company. But we're going to leave it there. So what do you think about this? Do you think the judge was right to order that to create an email? Do you think the judge should have pushed a little harder? Or do you think the judge was actually being unreasonable? Do you think paying for an overnight letter, and only an overnight letter, or handing it to, the person in the Uber general counsel in person was perfectly fine? I would love to know. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe. If you enjoy my videos, consider becoming a Patreon member. It's totally optional, of course, but even as low as $1 a month, it goes a long way to help the channel run smoothly and you get access to my private Discord server. Also, if gas prices are getting just a little down, check out the Get Upside app below. It's totally free, but you get cash back on every gas purchase. If you want more content from me, check out Kevin T. Rodriguez, the Apptrepreneur vlogs, and Autograph Hound. And finally, if you want to talk to me or other fellow ride guys out there, check us out at the Apptrepreneur Hangouts on Facebook. And as always, blame responsibly. Have a good one.